Hello, I'm J.A.A. Purves, and I'm an estate planning and family law attorney located in downtown Santa Barbara. I'm a licensed personal family lawyer with the Family Wealth Planning Institute, and I'm also a very strong advocate for not missing the forest for the trees. And I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce a way of thinking about estate planning that will help our families, friends, and fellow citizens. Estate planning is not just for the rich or for the old. Instead, first, estate planning is a liberty. Second, estate planning is a form of self-government and community building. Third, estate planning is the legal equivalent of preventative medicine, something that is simply part of being a responsible adult. So, number one, most of us are probably not used to thinking about estate planning as one of our liberties. But under our system of government within the tradition of the common law, that is exactly what it is. Most governments in the history of law have dictated what happens to someone's property when a person is medically incapacitated or dies. The liberty to create your own legal plan for your family, money, and property is not a liberty possessed by the vast majority of people throughout the world and history. It is worth understanding that ideas like private property and ownership have only developed over time, and they are still developing. Going back in time, in ancient Greece, the vast majority of people couldn't even legally make their own will. In ancient Rome, this was a privilege, only for rich patricians. In Anglo-Saxon England, before the Norman conquest, private ownership of land was not yet recognized in the law, and estate plans were not freely chosen, but instead mandated by inheritance laws. As an American, you live in a constitutional republic that rests upon a historical tradition of both written and unwritten law. As a result, you have the right to make your own decisions about what happens to you if you are medically incapacitated, which statistically happens to over 80% of us, and as to what happens to your money and property after you are gone. These are big life decisions about the futures of those who are closest to you. And these are decisions you have the liberty to make that can last, shape, and influence future generations for many years to come. Now, despite possessing this liberty, the majority of Americans, almost 70%, have never been educated to exercise it and currently have no estate plan. And that fact is despite the evidence that more than 95% of Americans say, when they are asked, that they intend to get around to estate planning soon. And yet, in another sense, the 70% of Americans who have reported not to have their own estate plan, they still do have one. It's the government's plan for them. And I wonder how many of you would be shocked if you were to learn that the government's default estate plan for you involves your paying more money for extra fees, costs, and taxes to the government. Well, that is the government's plan for you. All this is to say that the ability to create your own estate plan is a historically rare freedom and privilege. Quite frankly, it is a liberty which many in the past have fought, bled, and died in order to give you. And if we think of those who have sacrificed to pass down certain liberties to us, then perhaps the least we can do is actually assume the responsibility of not only exercising that liberty, but of exercising it well. Number two, there is certainly a large sense in which our modern age and culture has lost community. We lack many of the lasting commitments that are necessary in order to yield the results only long-term investment over many years can yield. And this loss, including the loss of local culture, local institutions and clubs, local customs, traditions, and community ties, has certainly resulted in giving up more and more control over our lives, both to the mass consumerism of large corporations and to the gravitational power of centralized government. However, if you were to study the American legal system, you would find that it is premised upon a few propositions that are meant to act as protections of our families and our liberty. One of these safeguards is called self-government. Self-government, in the communal context, is when the people make the law, or the people choose the people who make the law. Self-government is also only possible when areas of life and spheres of power are separate and divided. Local governments, communities, and families are meant, in our federalized system of law, to govern themselves as to their own spheres of personal knowledge and authority. If there is one principle that has been emphasized over and over again, it is that self-government only occurs by a kind of vigilance and habitual practice. Without intentional action, liberty fades to the centrifugal forces of centralizing control and power. And this is where estate planning comes in. An estate plan is a kind of family or local community governance. It is your intentionally deciding to utilize your personal knowledge and experience of those who are closest to you in order to ensure that everything you have worked hard to build is passed on to the persons and to the causes that you love most. This is an exercise of local and or familial self-government, rather than a ceding of power to the default rules of bureaucrats in a more distant government that does not personally know you or your family. In the time that we now live, local community and local institution building is both important and sorely needed. And creating your own estate plan intentionally and intelligently is a powerful tool of self-government. If our law firm can assist you in wielding such a tool to provide opportunities for and to safeguard the liberty of your family and your local community, then we would consider that to be an honor. Number 3. There are some important areas of life over which, because of the nature of the law of entropy, responsible adults must intentionally maintain. This includes your health and your strength. It includes your family and relationships and friendships. It includes the management of your budget and finances. And it includes the legal planning area of your life. Countless studies in health and medicine have shown that those of us who intentionally maintain our physical health through means of exercise and a healthy diet engage in a form of preventative medicine that cumulatively saves us years of poor health and tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills. A doctor who successfully helps and persuades men and women to engage in healthy disciplines often saves them years of suffering in the long run. Estate planning is, when you understand it correctly, how responsible adults handle the legal planning area of their lives, and it is analogous to preventative medicine. As a law firm that weekly assists clients with probate cases, trust litigation and inheritance disputes, family law disputes, divorce and child custody matters, I am not exaggerating when I say that a primary reason Why so many of our clients end up paying tens of thousands of dollars in the courts is due to neglect and failure to adequately plan for their families and for their finances, and to intentionally practice relational disciplines within marriages, within the sacred trust of parenting children, and within local community relationships. A good estate plan prevents future conflict. It includes regular updates and maintenance when your family or your assets change, and also when the law changes. It establishes structure and security for both spouses and their children. It establishes certainty for all concerned. There is great value in this because it is, when you distill it down to its ultimate causes, a form of care and love. If you proactively take care of the legal planning area of your life, if you carefully select who the decision makers will be, and if you provide those decision makers with guidelines to be fair and equitable, but also to meet the specific needs of those you love, if you set up a structure that maximizes the probability that the property and money you acquire and save is both protected and grown over time, then you are doing the same thing that you do when you engage in physical exercise or healthy eating. You are choosing to exercise your liberty to engage in a form of local self-government that is designed to establish security and structure, both to save you and your family in taxes, and to save you and your family from future conflict in the courts. If you haven't already built and designed a strong estate plan, our law firm specializes in helping you to do so in a way that will be carefully tailored to the circumstances of your own life and family. We've systematized and streamlined the process to make it easy for you, and we enjoy educating people about the strategies and planning they have available to them, whether that means how to maximize their savings and taxes, or in order to set up a long-term plan to protect and educate your children. So, at our law firm, when we help clients create their estate plans, we don't just view ourselves as earning a fee. We view this process both as community building and as serving the common good. If you retain our services to enable you to accomplish these ends for the good of those closest to you, we'll gratefully consider it our privilege. If you live in California and you haven't already scheduled an estate planning consultation with us, feel free to call, text, or email our law firm. We'll provide you with that educational consultation free of charge, and then you'll decide where you want to go from there. I hope all this helps reframe how you think about the basic principles at the roots of legal and estate planning, and some ways in which you're doing it can serve the common good. Thank you for listening.